Tom Silva, the modest Massachusetts carpenter, was on your television screen for decades. However, he was leading an entirely different life behind the cameras. Even his closest admirers would be shocked to learn that he has been covertly sponsoring anything since 1999. Despite being sworn to silence, three families are aware of the truth. It's about tragedies in Massachusetts, wildfires in California, and a foundation no one knew existed. Tom's greatest secret was exposed when the narrative was eventually released in 2025. You will be shocked at what he has been doing with his wealth. The Tom Silva you believe you know is not this one. On January 17, 1947, Tom Silva was born in Lexington, Massachusetts. In a household where every hand was valued and effort never stopped. Dick, his older brother, was already learning the craft from his father, who made a fortune by shaping stone. As a result, Tom was raised as the youngest member of a family that valued skill, music, on a daily basis. He grew up seeing his father fix the stone walls of antique New England houses. Additionally, he was able to mix mortar by hand by the time he turned 8. Their home felt more like a workshop than a place to live, and it was partially constructed by family members. Tom handled ancient tools that left splinters, stained furniture with his father, and gained experience in cautious carpentry by making little blunders. When he was 10 years old, he independently grabbed up a hammer and began framing little sheds with his uncles. In addition, a chisel slipped on his left hand, leaving him with a lifelong scar that served as a reminder of his early beginnings. For him, the years between the ages of 10 and 16 continued to grow. He never forgot one project in particular. His family made the decision to construct a fallout bunker beneath their former colonial house from 1787. The premise felt serious, and there was a generalized fear of the Cold War. Using just shovels, Tom assisted in excavating a massive 20 by 40 by 12 foot pit, removing large boulders, framing the structure, and assisting with the final touches by hand. 2 whole years passed. Something settled inside of him when it was finished. He was aware that his future lay in this work. Learning the rhythm of construction and the delight of witnessing something emerge from the ground were just as important as understanding how things fit together. He was molded and ready for the world he would soon rule by these experiences. Tom took a different route after graduating from Lexington High School in 1965. Despite being offered a scholarship, he chose not to attend college. He believed that actual job could teach him more than school could. He was drawn to a craft by his family's heritage, and tales of his great-grandfather's involvement in the Battle of Lexington made him feel proud of his long-lasting labor. More than anything else, he had faith in his hands, and that faith kept him going. At the age of 19, Tom and his brother Dick made the decision to start their own business in 1966. With just one pickup truck and $500 worth of equipment, they started Silva Music Brothers Construction in Arlington. Many of them took out loans. Initially, they grabbed whatever they could find. Simple improvements, little attic makeovers, and minor adjustments for nearby properties. In that first year, 10 positions were obtained by word of mouth. People trusted the brothers after witnessing their methods. The foundation of a business that would endure for decades was laid by that modest beginning on a chilly winter day. In Belmont, 2 years later, Tom expanded his kitchen for the first time on his own. He was forced to use only hand tools, no power saws or sophisticated machinery, to mill custom oak cabinets. The lumber truck was delayed while he worked through a severe blizzard. Nevertheless, he completed the entire project in only 12 days. For a new contractor, the $2,000 earned from the assignment was a tremendous win. More doors opened after the homeowner notified the neighbors about the music. Tom soon discovered that quality and perseverance could propel him farther than anything else. By 1970, Silva Brothers had started doing roofing work, and Tom had developed a method that used old barnwood as a shingle base. Customers saved roughly 20% on material expenses because of that concept, which aided in the expansion of the company. However, all changed on a stormy day. Because of inadequate underbracing, a roof collapsed. Tom barely avoided getting hurt. He was shaken by that moment. It compelled the brothers to invest in improved techniques and raise their safety standards. The near catastrophe became a pivotal moment. They gained a reputation for carrying out tasks with greater support and meticulous planning after that day. Life kept moving. Susan, whom Tom married in 1972, suddenly became the company's mainstay. In their garage, she set up a little music office and arranged the books. Tom could focus on more ambitious initiatives now that she was taking care of the numbers. In 1974, he worked on a barn conversion that necessitated ripping apart 200-year-old beams by hand. As the assignments grew bigger and more challenging, Susan maintained the company's stability. Their collaboration provided the company with a strength that skill by itself could not provide. Then, in 1975, the crisis started. The Silvas were forced into a difficult situation when a client filed a lawsuit accusing them of having a defective foundation. To cover the costs, they were forced to mortgage their house. Tom visited the location every night for 3 months and rebuilt the entire building himself rather than arguing verbally. Startled by his effort, the client decided not to pursue the litigation and even suggested them to others. The word got around town about that. It cemented Tom's standing as a man who supported his work during the most trying times. A little more than 10 years later, things changed again. Producer Russell Morrish from This Old House watched Tom cutting dovetail joints at a trade exhibition in 1986. MASH was drawn to Tom's straightforward explanation of the method. Soon after, Morrish unexpectedly showed up at one of Tom's job sites with a video crew and music. There, he asked Tom to repair a deteriorating porch. Tom accomplished the repair in under 2 hours, working with calm focus while the cameras rolled. He was hired as the general contractor for the performance after that unexpected music test. He made his debut TV appearance a few months later. In March 1986, he made his debut in the first episode of Season 6. He used recycled chestnut wood to rebuild the railing of a Victorian staircase. Because the wood was ancient and brittle, the work appeared delicate. Tom took care of it easily, bringing the style back instead of changing it. His candor astounded everyone. Prior to entering the show, he acknowledged that he had never watched television. He learned everything from actual work. His straightforward style captured the attention of the audience and made him a favorite right away. There were also tense moments. Bob Vila proposed the use of power nailers to expedite the 1987 Nantucket project. Tom declined. Like builders did in the 19th century, he intended to hand nail each of the 500 shiplap boards. The team was irritated and filming was delayed by a whole day as a result. Tom, however, thought the previous technique produced a tighter finish. His dedication garnered admiration and demonstrated the true values of the event. By 1988, viewers had discovered another aspect of Tom. He whistled Portuguese folk songs whenever he worked on precise details or sanded wood. It was a childhood habit. He was able to concentrate and remember his origins thanks to those songs. That little background sound became a favorite among fans. It became a part of his charm and felt like a window into his universe. A terrifying moment in 1989 almost ended tragically. Tom was working on external siding when a scaffold collapsed during the Bedford shoot. Immediately below was a cameraman. Taking the fall himself, Tom shoved the man aside. Despite having a shattered right wrist, he continued to work. With his wrists pinned, he continued to record, doing whatever he could. The team never forgot it. His concern for his staff and the work was evident in his action. Tom Silva's ascent was not a dramatic one. It took place in a calm colonial setting in captured Massachusetts in the year 1990. The house has been abandoned to decay. Beams were worn, floors drooped, and music appeared to be failing in nearly every area. Tom didn't handle it like any other remodeling project. He handled it as though it were a time machine. Not because it was simpler, but because it was the right thing to do, he sought the original peg joints from salvaged ship timbers. After that, he cut mortise and tenon joints by hand for more than 400 hours. Slow job, taxing on the hands. However, every cut was in line with the construction style of the late 18th century. People could sense the honesty in it after it was finished. It was covered by the New York Times. It was hailed by preservation associations. His reverence for traditional craft was imitated by builders throughout the Northeast. And that one deserted house became the point at which his name spread. He returned to this ancient house in 1992, 2 years later, with an issue that all old houses conceal: uneven flooring. The majority of builders hoped for the best using ordinary shims. Hope was not what Tom desired. He developed what became known as the Silva shim technique during the renovation of Belmont House. Thin and clever, he utilized laminated cedar wedges, stacking them so that he could precisely adjust the height without pushing the floor. That minor tweak did a big thing. Cracks were prevented. Squeaks stopped. Rather than fighting the house, it allowed the floor to settle with small movements. People viewing at home could see the change right away. It was adopted and taught at New England's trade schools. This technique became the standard for fixing sagging floors in homes built before 1900. Carpenters still bring it up nowadays, as if it were a silent norm that has been passed down. Then 1994 arrived, one of those times when music could have gone horribly wrong. As composed as ever, Tom was using a handsaw to cut during a live demonstration on an old house. The blade shattered abruptly. It blasted back, almost colliding with his thigh. He sustained a serious cut. For a moment, the set froze, but Tom remained calm. Viewers enjoyed it because he remained steady, not because it was frightening, but because he dressed the wound right there on camera and remarked, "Tools have minds of their own." Behind-the-scenes specials repeatedly featured that clip. Additionally, it promoted a greater discussion about tool safety on television and on actual job sites. The lesson was obvious. Although mishaps can occur, a true artisan is able to maintain composure. He converted to a Newton attic by 1995 as a result of the show. This time, the narrative turned intimate. His nephew Charlie was there learning under him. Custom corbels carved from butternut wood were required for the attic. Tom thought the corbels, music, were important for both the appearance and the strength. Charlie resisted. To save time, he wanted, music, corbels that were already made. That was a sensitive suggestion. The two got into a heated argument. The sort of dispute that involves not just wood but also your ideas about what a trade ought to be. Speed versus tradition. New shortcuts against old-fashioned methods. Eventually, Tom managed to hold the cue. The project was successful. Charlie eventually acknowledged that he became a better music artisan as a result of those rigorous requirements. Tom took a further step in 1996 that further sharpened his work. He added a dedicated mill shop to Silva Brothers as part of his expansion. It was more than just a store with brand new equipment. He attended a traditional school. He personally calibrated a 1920s planer until it could produce flawless edge-glued panels. Those panels ended up in a high-profile Boston Museum exhibit showing American craftsmanship done the hard way with period tools and methods. The exhibit got national attention. People saw that modern restorations did not have to erase history. You could build new life into old homes without breaking their soul. And Tom was proving it again and again. As the years went by, the work continued. His first Ask This Old House segment debuted in October 2002. The job involved fixing a slate roof that was leaking in a historic house in Wynne, Massachusetts. Slate can last over 100 years, so people think it is unbreakable. But in the details, Tom discovered the truth. Thermal expansion over decades had cracked exactly 47 slate tiles. The stress was exacerbated by the roof deck's inadequate ventilation. He didn't use inexpensive substitutes to fix it. He replaced each cracked tile with handmade replicas, matching the old 19th century look. It took several days and special tools. Viewers learned something simple and powerful. Even the strongest materials need care, and real slate work is rare for a reason. In March 2005, another home called him in. This one sat near the coast, and the hardwood floors were warping. High humidity was cupping the boards and lifting them, and a full replacement would have cost a fortune. Tom did not rush to tear it out. Instead, he dug a 24 inches deep trench around the room's perimeter and built a hidden dehumidification system. The idea came from 18th century cellar tricks used to protect grain stores. Old wisdom, new materials. The moisture dropped, the wood calmed down, and the homeowners avoided about $10,000 in future repairs. The fix felt like a clever secret, and it spread fast among people living in humid places. Behind the camera, though, there was a cost to all this work. After years of pushing through work, bending over, and lifting, it eventually caught up with him. In 2007, he went through 2 significant back surgery within months. He had to leave the set to recuperate, but he returned a few weeks after the second surgery. He refrained from displaying the discomfort on television. He continued to demonstrate the same tactics using braces and cautious posture even if the crew's schedule changed. That comeback was eventually presented in a behind-the-scenes special, and it reminded every viewer that the trade is not simply about competence. Every good job you see is paid for by the body, and it all comes down to endurance. Tom continued to advocate for harmony between the ancient and the new by 2010. He led a series on energy-efficient windows in a 1920s cottage. The homeowners sought comfort, but did not want to compromise the home's uniqueness. Vinyl windows were cheap and popular, but Tom refused them. He chose custom stained mahogany sashes that matched the original woodwork, then built airtight seals. Over the first year, heating bills reduced by around 30%. Hundreds of dollars were saved as a result. The main idea was straightforward. If constructed and sealed properly, traditional materials can outperform newer ones. Even ancient homes can feel modern without having to look it. A rainy shoot in Maine in the autumn of 2012 forced him to make yet another snap decision. The storm was already on top of them, and a house was at risk of water damage. Tom used salvaged copper flashing to construct a quick-fix gutter system. They used special fasteners, trimmed it to suit the roof edge, and worked in the rain. It felt like a rescue mission because of the way it was recorded. Because it was quick, inexpensive, and ingenious, the video went popular among do-it-yourselfers. Additionally, recycling copper rather than purchasing new parts gave it a neat, useful vibe that appealed to consumers. Silva brothers had expanded to the point that Tom felt prepared to hand over day-to-day operations to family by 2015. Charlie took over the operating reins from him. The business now employed 25 people and generated almost $5 million in revenue annually. Tom did not vanish even then. He went to job sites each week and conducted his own audits. In 2016, that practice saved a project. In a 2-story version, he discovered a significant framing error. If no one noticed, a load-bearing wall that was misaligned may have led to a structural catastrophe. Tom managed to stop it. The crew discovered that no detail is too tiny if you want to sleep at night after saving the homeowner from a 6-figure catastrophe. The business changed once more in 2018 as a result of global changes. Silva brothers changed course due to the growing demand for green buildings. Tom oversaw the construction of an Arlington solar integrated garage. It was more than just roof panels. He made bamboo trusses by hand, selecting them for their strength and low carbon footprint. Then it was put to the test by nature. With winds exceeding 100 meters, a Category 2 hurricane made landfall. The garage remained stable. No significant harm. The initiative proved that traditional crafts may continue to thrive into the future without losing their core values, and it was recognized with a Regional Sustainability Award. They were taught yet another difficult lesson in 2019. It's about trust this time. For a significant project, Silva brothers bought high-quality timber. What came was feeble and broken and thin. A swindle involving a supplier. A total of $50,000 was lost. Tom pushed for an inquiry, confronted the vendor, and refused to pay. He got the most of the money back after heated negotiations and legal pressure. Then he tightened all of their supplier regulations. As a warning to other contractors, the story went viral. Good materials are the foundation of good work, and you cannot be lenient about it. By 2020, Tom was considering legacy more than growth. He taught his 14-year-old grandson how to make dovetail joints on a basic workbench in his garden. He demonstrated the ancient technique that he, had learned decades earlier. But this time, he also wore gloves and eye protection, among other contemporary safety equipment. Things he disregarded when he was younger. Despite being a small scene, it had a significant meaning. You pass it all forward jointly because it's important for your family, your craft, and your safety. Then, in 2022, there was another demanding job. The restoration of a historic Lexington Inn was awarded to Silva brothers. The building was supported by 300-year-old pine beams that, if damaged, could not be restored. Tom was in charge of the reinstallation, maintaining the original appearance while strengthening each beam for seismic, music, safety. In order to comply with contemporary requirements without altering the course of history, they employed specially made steel brackets concealed within the wood. It was appreciated by preservationists. It was praised by city leaders. It also likely seemed like a full-circle moment for Tom. In 1990, he began by rescuing a house built in 1790. And decades later, he was still performing the same thing with the same cautious hands, but on a larger scale. With the same steady hands he had used for decades, Tom Silva entered 2023. And he carried them into a world that was quite different from the one he had grown up in. He didn't merely stand around and take in the new walls that rose from nozzles when he was in Austin for a special segment about 3D printed homes. He desired to experience them. In order to test the joints himself, he picked up a drill. The printed layers appeared quick and fluid at first glance. However, he sensed holes that could only be filled by genuine joinery as he put his weight into the drill. According to him, neither tradition nor machines may rule the future. If both cooperated, it might be more powerful. The episode, which broadcast in early 2025, showed weeks of arguments amongst builders. He was, music, sticking to the past, according to some. He observed something that they were ignoring, according to others. All agreed, however, that he was making the sector slow down and reflect. When Tom entered the trade show for his master class on woodworking in 2024, Boston came alive. Since sunrise, people had been waiting in line. The hall was crowded with about 5,000 faces by the time he hit the floor. The expo had never seen a larger audience. Tom took his time. After laying out a cherry board, he shaped it into a dining table over the course of 2 days. He hand-planed for 48 hours straight, which was his high point. People leaned in to watch the grain rise under his touch as the sound of metal striking wood filled the room. Following that, over 80% of participants stated that they intend to go back to hand-planing rather than using machines. Traditional tool sales increased by 35% at tool stores. And it all began with Tom spending 2 exhausting days moving a plane around one board. But more than any expo, early 2025 put him to the test. During a siding job in Massachusetts in January, he shattered, music, his hip after falling off a ladder. Physicians cautioned him that it frequently takes months for those over 70 to recover. He paid attention. Then he disregarded the schedule. He returned to ask this old house 6 weeks later to demonstrate his new ladder routine to the audience. He introduced them to ladder checkpoints, slow climbing, and modest stairs. He paused every 10 feet to catch his breath, check his balance, and then resumed his movement. He received messages from older do-it-yourselfers who said that his candor prevented others from making the same error he had. He collaborated with his nephew Charlie on a tiny house project in New England shortly after his return. They desired to have no waste. Each board was important. They made brackets and shelves out of leftover bits and used salvaged barnwood for the entire frame. The build evolved into a 10-part web series. More than 1,000 do-it-yourselfers saw it, and many of them were prompted to reconsider how much they tossed out. Charlie claimed that Tom's waste-nothing rule was the key. Due to the build's popularity, tiny homes of a similar design began to appear all over the area. Despite all of that effort, Tom continued to consider a more profound idea. He was still performing quality inspections at Silva Brothers at the end of 2025, at the age of, music, 78. Rumor had it that he might be retiring shortly. He gave a headshake. He declared that as long as he had breath, he would continue to construct. He also started writing a memoir. He wished to share tales of his blunders, morals, patience, and the silent times that molded him. A single faulty nail that previously resulted in a disastrous home inspection was mentioned in one early extract. His subsequent treatment of each board was altered by that incident. Publishers have already dubbed the memoir a must-read, and it will be released in Music in 2026. He led a softer life away from the limelight. He and his wife Susan have been going to Portuguese festivities in Massachusetts for almost 50 years. They participated in the Provincetown Portuguese Festival, now in its 78th year, every June. Over 10,000 individuals attended the festival in 2025, which took place from June 27 to June 29. In the 1970s, Tom's grandfather taught him how to craft wooden rosaries. Snorts, he was frequently asked to demonstrate his carving techniques by festival organizers. He was viewed by the locals as a component of the festivities. At home, he withdrew into his tiny Arlington workshop, which was stocked with 1950s-era tools. He fixed old chisels, levels, and aeroplanes that were frequently over a century old. According to tool collectors, items similar to his might fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars. At a barn auction in 2015, he paid $50 for a rare 1820s remote handsaw that was now valued at about $5,000. He gave the proceeds from the sale of numerous repaired tools to trade scholarships. He used materials from their respective eras to bring music to life, and each item in his workshop had a tale to tell. Then, even his closest admirers were taken aback by the revelation. He had amassed 200 antique saws by 2025. It grew to become one of the nation's biggest private saw music collections. Sitting in the middle of it, gleaming like a museum exhibit, was the cherished remote handsaw. However, there was more going on behind that pastime. He had been discreetly supporting fire recovery efforts for families in Massachusetts and California since 1999. He helped 3 families rebuild their homes. He was never a creditor. Witnesses who witnessed the Silva brothers' foundation intervene, music, without requesting gratitude were the only ones who told others about it. His influence was widespread even before he used social media. His methods were imitated by do-it-yourself YouTube channels, which amassed over 10 million views annually. People studied his woodwork, looked for antique saws and aeroplanes at exhibits, and watched music old episodes. Because of him, a lot of tools sold out. Discussions about whether his techniques were still the finest were rife on forums, and many people who started carpentry claimed that it all began with watching Tom fix something on TV. He took to a new type of stage in Music, April 2024. He was honored for his 38-year adventure on this historic home by being inducted into the National Housing Hall of Fame. According to surveys, his efforts encouraged over 50 million viewers to safely attempt home improvements. He became a part of the history of housing in America. This was no little honor, either. He became one of the most respected voices in construction as a result. He continued to teach despite all of this. He led 20 trainees through a workshop based on patience each year. He has been training around 250 carpenters since 2010. According to data, they made 15% less joinery errors than people who had not been taught his methodical and meticulous methodology. A generation that prized accuracy and rejected shortcuts was formed by these workshops. He started discussing a farewell special for this historic home around July 2025. He stated that the special would air in 2026 and that he would soon take a back seat. Unseen outtakes of set stories, co-star interviews, and recollections from homeowners whose walls he restored would all be included in the roughly 90-minute film. In search of unique moments, producers combed through thousands of hours of video.